I'm privileged to introduce Ayeda Husain to you. This young woman is a remarkable person, not only because she's the author of the Sufi Tarot, which is the world's first deck and book ever to reintroduce tarot through the lens of Sufism. She's a longtime journalist with a double master's from NYU and the author of the Sufi Tarot. She's the first Pakistani to have a #1 bestseller in Sufism on Amazon and the first Muslim to be published by Hay House, the world's largest self-help publishing company. That's right. She has led talks, seminars, and workshops across the world, including Rumi seminars at Duke University. The Sufi Tarot has now been translated into 7 languages: German, French, Turkish, Czech, Romanian, Polish, and Portuguese. And that's quite a remarkable feat. In addition, Ayeda is a Murshida in the Chishti Inayatiya Sufi lineage silsila. She's been teaching Sufi poetry, philosophy, meditation, and chanting as a means of healing and evolving for 21 years now. She's a teacher at Suluk Academy, a 2-year meditation school based in Richmond, Virginia. She has led Sufi retreats worldwide, taught Sufi meditation to Buddhist monks in Tokyo, and has been invited to the UN as part of an international delegation of spiritual leaders. She lives and works in Oakville, Ontario, where she runs a Sufi center called Razwatul Firdaus. So that's not all that she is, but we will discover. So Ayeda, as a practitioner of tarot for several decades, and for having gone off it, because the interpretations and somehow the decks lost their appeal to me, I just want to ask you about Sufism and tarot, and how did you combine the two?
There is a famous Sufi called Al-Kharaz, and he says, look for God where opposites meet.
Put it up.
The Sufi Al-Kharaz says, look for God where opposites meet. We're not looking for things which take us away from each other, but things which bring us together. So when I started researching tarot, I was blown away at how many similarities there were with Sufism. The journey, the history, the art, the quest for knowledge, the hidden motifs, the symbols, the images. There were so many similarities, but somehow nobody had done this before. So I began by really focusing on the reason why we undertake this Sufi path. What is Sufism? And to understand that, it's really important to go to the etymology of the word Sufi. Saf or Safi is the process of purification. And this process is taken on through multiple methods. There's meditation, there's chanting, there's breath work, many practices that we do. But the underlying aim of all of them is to purify the self and to gain self-knowledge. If you know yourself, you will know thy Lord. And tarot is very, very much, and we're going to look at more images later on, it's called the journey of the fool. It's the journey not of a foolish person, but of the young soul who's out there in search of truth. So bringing the two together was the most natural thing in the world, but most people don't know what tarot is. And that's what I want to explain really, really quickly. Again, going to the etymology of the word, everyone thinks that the word tarot comes from the Italian word tarocchi. It's a game they used to play, but it actually comes from the Arabic word turuk, the plural of tariqas. So it could be the mystical path, it could be 4 ways, which are the elements of earth, water, fire, air, which I will explain. But what tarot really is a set of 78 cards. There are 22 major arcana, which refer to major life themes. And there are 56 minor arcana, which refer to day-to-day events. You put them together, you shuffle them, and the way they come up, they hold messages for you. So,
what I wanted to mention was that the messages that they held in the Western interpretation of the cards were really quite frightening and formidable. And what is remarkable about Ayeda's deck of cards is that you actually look forward to doing a spread. And, the message is so hopeful. And, but what really intrigues, I think, everybody is your research into Ibn Arabi and the Mamluks. Or would you like to speak about that later?
I have a whole presentation which is going to show you the roots of tarot. They have not come from Europe as we have been made to believe that they were. They have actually come from, okay, it's a long history. Let's begin from the beginning. So the minor arcana are 56 cards, and they're based on the elements of earth, water, fire, air. They're 4 suits of cups, coins, swords, and staffs. And they came from the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt, the Islamic Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt. So to really understand the history of tarot, you have to see where cards came from. The printing press was in China. They were developed there. They came across the land in Central Asia, where the suit of polo sticks was developed, because polo, as we know, comes from Central Asia. And interestingly, when the Italians picked up the cards and took them to Italy, they saw these sticks with these strange shapes, and they didn't know what polo was. And they figured, okay, these sticks coming from the east, there must be Aladdin's wands or something. So they named them wands. They took the name Jafgan, which was the original name of the polo sticks, and they changed the name of the suit to wands, because they thought it was something magical. So wands were introduced in Central Asia. Then we go into Iran, which is the first time we get pictorial representations. Before that, they were just images of cups and coins and swords and wands and polo sticks. But the first time we get pictorial representations of humans is from the Indo-Persian Mughal miniature art form. So like the pages and the knights where they're straddled on top of horses, that came from Persia.
Really?
Yes, and then from there, then they came to the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt, where the 4 suits were finalized. The Italians picked them up, took them, and in the Renaissance, they just ran with them, and they just took on a very different medieval Christian flavor. And I'll show you some of the images. You will see how far we have come from what they really were originally and what they've become now. Oh, and one more thing. The first tarot deck known to man is at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul from the 1300s. It can be seen there. And this is a slight dishonesty of Western academia. It was only at 1932, that it was acknowledged that, okay, they came from there, just because they found the deck and they could not dismiss their existence. So this deck is still there at the Topkapi Palace. If anyone goes, really, please go take a look. And it really shows you how far back the roots of tarot are.
So that particular deck is, who made it?
The Mamluks. It's just called the Mamluk deck.
And they used it for divination?
So divination, I'm glad you brought that word up. Divination is a bit of, it's a tricky word because it has all these connotations. Divination does not mean that you are telling the future. It can mean you are trying to understand things about yourself.
Right.
So the Sufi path is all about self-knowledge. So the secret arcana comes from the Latin word arcane, means secret. The secrets the Sufis are trying to uncover are the same secrets we're trying to uncover in tarot, which is questions about yourself. Why am I here? What am I meant to be doing? Why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I attract certain repetitive patterns in my life? Why? Basically, all about yourself. Allama Iqbal said that all knowledge is wasteful unless it can be applied to yourself. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the knowledge, wisdom of these cards, not to foretell the future. I write that in my book. It's on my website. Every workshop, every talk I give across the world, this is not foretelling the future, ever. We don't believe in that. We don't believe anyone can do that. This is more about self-knowledge. But to answer your question, they were used for games as well as for mystical purposes like Fal.
Right.
We have the Fal-e Hafiz. It's the same concept.
And you'd also referred to the ghaib.
Yes. So it's very important to know that tarot falls into the category of ilm-e ghaib. It's called licit divination. It's not illicit magic, which is sihr. It's not sihr. It's ilm-e ghaib. So it's very legit. I belong to the Chishti Silsila, and I wrote to my murshid and I said, I want to do this, but if it's haram, tell me and I won't do it. And he gave me the go-ahead. In fact, he sent me an article which showed how one of the cards is based on the writings of Ibn Arabi, and we're going to get into that a little bit later.
So we look forward to the presentation then.
Shall we begin with the
I
presentation?
think so, and we can continue.
Okay, wonderful. So this is the back of the card. You can tell they are, something else which I need to share with you. Every image that you see here, everything in here came to me in my meditation. And I'm not an artist. So it would come to me, I would write it down, and I work with two wonderful artists at NCA. They cannot be here today. They would be jumping up and down if they were here. But I would work with them on Zoom, sometimes up to 12 hours. Everything had to look the way I had envisioned it. Every fingernail, everything. This is all digital art. One of them, the Sultan, when we were clearing up the layers, we realized there were 250 layers. We'd made 250 changes. So this is digital art, and thank you. It was very, very painstaking work, and just the cover took us 2 weeks. And I'm not saying a couple of hours a day. I mean all day, every day for 2 weeks, no weekends, nothing. So it's a real labor of love. So these are the original Mamluk cards, which you can see at the top copy if you go there. And, the names have been cut off, but the coins were the dirahim. The staffs, I believe, were the Javkan. The swords were Sayuf, and the Tuman were the coins, and these were the cups. So you can see what they look like. They have been refurbished. So the king of coins, the king of swords was the Malik Sayuf. The king of polo sticks was the Malik Javkan. The king of coins was the Malik Tuman. And the king of cups was, I forgot the name. What was cups? Tuman. So you can see what they look like, the Arabic writing. These are the oldest tarot cards known to man. They go back to the 1300s. Then the Italians happened. The Venetian merchants came to Egypt, and they picked up these cards, and they loved them so much. Remember, this was a time of great cultural exchange between Moorish Spain and Europe. There were a lot of philosophers, poets, academics, astronomers, and all their work was being taken into Europe and being translated. So this is one of the things which was taken to Europe, and you can tell that these early cards, the Visconti Sforza deck, 100 years afterwards, still look a little bit like the Mamluk cards. They're ornate. You know, you've got this old Baba-looking guy over here. Still a little bit more
That's
like
the
ours.
hermit, I think.
I think so,
Yeah.
yes. But see, the hermit is still very Eastern looking. And then 200 years later, the French came, and they came up with the Marseille deck. And they went completely modern and minimalist. So you can see how it's moved away from the ornate, Eastern, rich colors to the Italians, which was still similar to the French. And this is very, very different, as you can tell, 1600. So this is 300 years afterwards. And then comes the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is probably the most famous deck in the world today. Most people know this one. Remember, this came in the early 1900s. And most of the movements that we know today, which relate Kabbalah and other mysticisms with tarot, were introduced in the 1900s, 600 years after the Islamic Mamluk deck. So there are a lot of wild theories which have been thrown out there, but there's no basis to them. The only academic research and historical research which shows where tarot came from is the ones I showed you, the Mamluk Sultanate, and everything else. There was a time when there was a great fetishization of everything which was Egyptian in Europe. So they said that they can be traced back to ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I heard that.
Somebody called Court de Javelin, who was a French occultist, came up with that theory, based on absolutely nothing. It's just a feeling he had, and somehow it got absorbed in the collective consciousness. It's got nothing to do with ancient Egypt again. It's based in the Islamic Mamluk Sultanate. And you can see how far we went from there. So most people are aware by now that the minor arcana came from the Mamluk Sultanate. But what about the major arcana? Even today, and so this is my next book, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but even today, most people believe that the major arcana, the figures of the major arcana, which are archetypes, were introduced in Italy. Not really. Okay, there's a spacing issue here, but Ibn Arabi, Sheikh, the Grand Sheikh, the Master, the Grand Master, Ibn Arabi from Andalusia, the Grand Andalusian Master, had this diagram called the cosmic cycle. In it, he lists the 22 names of Allah in a certain order, and they go round. And it's very important that we have the circle because in Sufism, we have the circle of fana, disconnection, and baqa, reconnection. And it's a circle, it's a constant cycle we go through again and again. Ibn Arabi, in his wisdom, now this is way before tarot was discovered, has 22 names of God in a circle. The 22 major arcana are exactly the same qualities. So we know that the divine names are not just names, they're qualities.
Right.
And the archetypes of the major arcana are qualities as well. So we have the 22 qualities, which I'm going to show you, in the same exact order as Ibn Arabi put them in his grand cosmic cycle. This has been brushed under the carpets of history. This has been dismissed. There is so much cultural appropriation within tarot in the West, actually, as well as in the East. We became afraid of it as something really, really bad and dark, when it really wasn't. The darkness and all was actually presented and reintroduced into it much later, not from our culture, from outside cultures looking in. The original model of the major arcana are 22 divine names.
Could you tell us some of the names that he used?
Yes. So the moon is Al-Mubin. Okay. Al-Mubin, clarity, the one who brings clarity to that which is dark. But again, this is my book, so I don't want to give you too much.
Okay.
So any questions before I jump into my own images? Yes? There were actually 26, and then 4 were removed. So there are 22 now, but there were 26.
So was this originally created as the tarot used nowadays for looking at the future or predicting things, or was this just for meditation?
So it was for both. It was a game as well as for self-reflection. But
It would
it's
be a
important.
fal. It would be a
like,
fal.
Like fal, exactly. But it's important to also get the chronology right here. Ibn Arabi came before the Renaissance. So it was his work that all of this is based on. He did not create the tarot, but tarot was, the major arcana were based on his writings. They were so inspired. So much knowledge was preserved in the Islamic world, and then those books were taken to Europe. There was astronomy, philosophy, art, history, all this incredible knowledge was then taken to Europe, and that is how it took on a very, very different persona.
Are you making a presentation of your tarot cards just
Yes,
now?
I would love to do
Because I
that.
think that will give the audience a clarity, and the images are relatable, and the names particularly are wonderful because they trigger a very positive feeling. And I assure you that to lay out a tarot deck, it's a mixed, it's a double-edged sword. So you have to be very careful, but not with Ayeda's tarot. So that is what I like about it.
Thank
But anyway,
you.
I think they'll get a clearer picture if you give a presentation.
Okay, so I want to begin with the first card, which is known as the Fool. Okay, so we don't need to get into that. We've gone over that. So you can see how the Fool was depicted at the bottom right in the Marseille deck, Lamat, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Fool. And I call her, also there's, by the way, there's equal female, gender, age, and race representation in here. It's not a bunch of Victorian-looking men wearing white wigs. Okay, we don't have that. So I wanted the Fool to represent the young soul, and I wanted a young girl in an angarkha, a flowing angarkha. This represents the elements of earth, water, fire, air, which show that she's protected by nature. And it embodies the concept of tawakkul in Sufism, that she knows that she is safe. So people may think that she's standing on the edge of a cliff, she's about to fall down, but if you look at her hands, they're actually open in surrender, kind of like bring it on. She's ready. She knows that she's taken care of. And so the journey of the Fool in tarot has been related to the hero's journey in literature, in which the hero's normal life is disrupted by some kind of conflict. Then there's an ordeal that the hero has to overcome, and eventually the hero comes back totally transformed. So this is also the journey of the Fool, the journey of the hero. And in Sufism, this is based on something that Ibn Sina, Avicenna wrote. He wrote about alchemy, and then Al-Ghazali picked it up and he related it to the soul. He spoke about the process of alchemizing something. You take something, you burn it. You take a base metal and you're going to burn it until it's just so hot you can't touch it. That's called calcinato in Latin. So we're going to burn it. Sometimes there's a burning in your life, things happen which are difficult. Second stage is called solve, in which you basically dissolve.
Yeah.
So the base metal is no longer what it was, it's become liquid. It's not what it was before, but it's not quite formed yet either. And then the third stage in Latin is called coagule, in which that same material comes together, but something new is formed.
Right.
So again, the burning, the melting, and the formation of something new is the transformation of the Fool, is the hero's journey.
Deep into the unknown.
Yes, into the unknown and just change.
Yes.
Sufism, the tasawwuf is transformation. So this is all about her change, her journey. The magician, Le Bateleur, the magician, I call him the alchemist.
Absolutely.
Because it's not about petty trickery, it's more about alchemizing something. And this is done through the power of concentration. So if you can see, he's staring at the candle, and through sheer concentration, he's making the papers above his head move up in the shape of infinity. So you can see that the older tarot cards, they have infinity. The infinity symbol was drawn. I really wanted the movement of papers. That means there's no limit to how much you can achieve through concentration.
Right.
That is the real magic, not trickery or pulling cats out of hats. That's not what we're trying to do. And then, of course, we have the high priestess, La Papesse. We call her the Murshida. And there's always an empty crescent moon, which is very, very important, a very important symbol in Sufism, because it represents the empty cup. It represents receptivity. When you have emptied yourself and become what Rumi calls hiç. Hiç means nothing in Farsi. When you've actually become nothing, you are the empty receptive cup, the empty crescent. And that is what she embodies. So her heart is empty, ready to receive, and the letters which are flowing in come from a place of stillness, the knowledge that she's able to access. So he is very much about active, outer, the zahir. She's very much about stillness and the batin. Reflection, and then receiving knowledge. The Empress, I call the Shahbanu, which is Farsi for Empress. And if you can see in the Rider-Waite-Smith, her dress has pomegranates drawn on it. So I wanted to put her in a field of pomegranates because she is expecting. And she represents the creative powers of the feminine, the divine feminine. So while the Murshida was very much an ascetic, she's not.
No.
She's all about embracing abundance within and without.
Fertility and abundance.
Fertility, and that's what pomegranates represent. Whoops. The Sultan, the emperor, represents the Jalal, masculine power. Remember, these cards in their upright position have a certain meaning. Reverse, they have a different meaning. So if you get this in reverse, that can mean distorted power. That can mean an abuse of power. In the right side, it can be somebody who is a wonderful caretaker. And remember, each card can be a person, a quality, or a message. So it doesn't mean that it's a person who is a leader. It could be that it's time to embrace the leadership within.
Yeah, it's a boss card,
Yeah.
whether it's you or somebody else. Right.
The Pope, the Hierophant. You will see a beautiful shrine in Multan, Bahauddin Zakriya. And this is the Pir who's sitting there. And through his heart, you can see an energetic white cord that goes up into the sky. And this is a practice that we do in my Chishti Silsila called Tasawwur-e-Murshid, in which you connect, you feel a white cord going from your heart to the heart of your Murshid, to an abstract person beyond them, and then eventually up to the divine. So if you look up, it says, qalb, 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 qalb. It's the heart. So it's connecting with the divine through your heart, not through thrones, not through any abuse of religious authority or power. It's really sitting humbly on the ground and through your heart connecting with the heart of the universe. The lovers, the ashikan. This is supposed to be the garden of paradise. And what's interesting is always that the man looks to the woman for his strength.
Right.
And she's looking upwards at a divine source for her strength. So there's this mutual, there's this flow of energy.
Dependence, yes.
Yeah.
And there are no snakes.
There are no snakes. Okay, this was a little bit of poetic license I took. The chariot represents moving forward. I got rid of the chariot because I wanted to have this man on top of two horses, no reins, no saddles, nothing, just representing how much you can achieve through the sheer power of your will. So Wali, not Vali, but Wali means mastery. The green water represents emotions. When you can get in control of your emotions and take care of the horse and the rider, that is the real success in life. So I'll tell you a funny story, non-Sufi related. If anyone saw the Shawshank Redemption, when he comes out of jail, he goes, yeah! Well, he's kind of based on that. Strength, quwwat. Again, there's always an infinity sign above our head. We have the infinity in the shape of the clouds. This is about a gentle strength, not a chest-banging aggression, but a strength that comes from taming the inner and the outer. As you can see, she has a little chick, a little chucha in her hands. And this is my childhood in Lahore. We used to go and buy little chuchas from Main Market. And then she has a big lion on the other side, and they're all existing harmoniously. So the real strength is the gentleness of spirit. This is my favorite card, the Hermit, the Darvish. The word Darvish comes from the dar. Dar means door. So somebody who's on the doorway between the inner and the outer, oscillating between the zahir and the batin, and that's what the Darvish does. To be a total ascetic in today's day and age is really not possible. We all kind of go in and out into the inner world, out into the physical world, and we are really trying to bring the two poles together in our being, integrate them. So you can see he has a little diya in his hand, and a patched robe is what Sufis often wear, and it represents the small light that he is able to kindle out of his heart, connecting with the larger light.
Beautiful.
But I really love the meaning of the word darvish. It's the door between the inner and the outer. And I knew this was going to be a real tongue twister for my white friends, but Wheel of Fortune is the charkhe falak, the charkha, the wheel in the sky, the charkhe falak. And this is actually based on a poem of Maulana Rumi's, in which he says there is a wheel in the sky, and it's constantly turning. Whether you realize it or not, it holds the whole world in order. That is a universal intelligence. So this is often called the karma card, But what it really means is that everything is happening exactly the way it is meant to be. All you need to do is align yourself with your authentic nature and move. There's no room for stagnation. There are changes.
Whereas in the Western interpretation of the Wheel of Fortune, it's a little more alarming because what goes up must come down. And so, it's again a card that you take with a pinch of salt. It's not that positive. Yeah. But in yours, it's the meaning has changed altogether, actually.
Yes.
Because it's a charkh which is moving on its own axis.
Absolutely.
So there's a balance.
Balance and transformation. Change is the only way to move forward.
Yeah.
Change is not something to be dreaded. And we'll see some of the more dreaded cards coming up. Okay, it was very important for me for justice to not be an old white man with a white wig. I wanted a beautiful African woman standing barefoot to really represent organic, natural justice. She's got the scales of justice in one hand, the sword of justice in the other hand. And I actually had to do a lot of research to find out which fabric, the print of a fabric was designed to see which is appropriate for somebody of her stature. So I wanted to make sure there was no appropriation, that I was assuming all African women look a certain way. We really did our research to make sure that even the necklace that she's wearing is appropriate for her level.
Right.
Some people believe that's a feather, it's supposed to be Mount Kilimanjaro. I know this card has long bothered you. The Hangman.
The Hangman. Frightening card. It used to.
So that's why I call him A, the Taslim, which means surrender. And B, it doesn't look like he's been tied up.
No, not at all.
He's kind of hanging out.
He's enjoying himself.
Yes, and in the Chilla Khanas, if you go to the Khanka of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, I think we were there together in Delhi many years ago, They had these chilla khanas in which the Sufis would actually hang themselves upside down. It's a form of sensory deprivation. And what happens when you hang upside down, not that I'm asking anyone to do that here, is that your heart is elevated above your head. The same thing happens when you go down in sajda, when you're praying. It's the only time when your head, your brain is actually lower and your heart is higher. So we're trying to give precedence to heart knowledge as opposed to the knowledge of the mind, which is limited. Rumi says the intellect is a wooden leg. It can only take you so far. So this is all about looking at everything from a different perspective and prioritizing.
It's also a suspension, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Just slowing down and just seeing things from a different perspective. Okay, this is the dreaded one. People are so scared of death. But, I mean, look at all those dead bodies lying there and the skulls and the skeletons. And that's not the way we look at death at all. Death in Islam, death in the Sufi tradition is actually something we look forward to. We speak about something called to die before you die. And that means cultivating that state of just of bliss, of just floating, of being there without your body. And this is actually based on the writings of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who says that when you die, your body is like a cloak. You just remove your cloak. That's it. You still exist. The soul always remains there. So you can tell that the cloak is coming off. And blue is supposed to be the color of the soul. It's the only color which only shows up in the sky and in the water. There's nothing in nature which is blue. So this person, and I tried to make them unisex so you couldn't tell if it was a male or a female because the soul has no gender, is actually abandoning the worldly and moving towards the light. And also if you look over here, the parched ground and beyond the person, it is greenery and there are flowers. So it's not something to be it's not formidable. And also it doesn't mean you're going to die when you get this card. I would have died 100,000 times.
To be fair, even in the Western interpretation, it's supposed to be a reinvention.
A transformation.
The death of your present self and renewal in a way.
Yeah.
But
And
the images are so horrible.
which is really a pity. I don't know. Getting any of those would really leave me with a horrible feeling, but I love getting this card because it means something is finishing and something new is beginning. Temperance, I call it sabr. It's about, again, bringing opposites together, the land and the water, through patience, through, what's another word for temperance? Through patience, through moderation.
Moderation.
Through moderation, you can bring opposites together. So the way they are merging in her being, that's what patience can do for you. Another one, people are so afraid of the devil. The devil. In the Sufi tradition, the devil is the nafs. It's our thoughts. And, I call the nafs being the illah, I-L-L-A-H. So when we say la ilaha, there is no illah. That illah, what is that illah? That illah is God with a small g. Anything we give so much importance to that we turn it out to be bigger than it is. And it's often the last thing you worry about before going to bed and the first thing you worry about when you wake up. Whether it's paying your bills, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a leaky faucet, whatever it is, it's that thing which really, really you make bigger than it needs to be, and it becomes like a cloud and chains and this red fog around your head. But the good news is that the chains can be broken. It's really all in the mind. It's never about some guy sitting on the outside with red horns. It's always about that voice of slander from within. It's always your own self. That's what the devil is. That's what the nafs is. Even something like, I'm not good enough. That's your nafs. I can't do this. It's never going to happen. That's your nafs. Never again on the outside. It's all within. Another dreaded card, the Tower. But they have all these dead bodies falling out. I made sure there were no dead bodies falling out. And Rumi has a poem in which he says, tear down this house. 100,000 houses can be built from the yellow carnelian buried underneath the foundation.
Wonderful.
But it has to come down first. So destruction is so important before there can be any reconstruction.
Right.
The old form has got to go. So something new can be formed. So it's hard to tell, but there are little things of little yellow carnelian glimmering in the foundation. The star, Sitara, the five-pointed star, is very important in our tradition because it represents the human body, the head, the arms, the legs.
And also the blessing, the revelation.
Yeah, the light coming. This represents hope.
Yeah.
But you can see there's one big star and 7 small stars in all of the cards. The 7 small stars, I believe, represent what we call the lataif and the Hindus call the chakras. 7 chakras, 7 lataif. That's what they represent. So you've got the physical body, the 5-pointed star, and then you have the subtle body within you, which are the 7 small stars. So these are hidden motifs within tarot which have been lost in Western academia because this whole concept of the zahir and the batin and the lataif and the outer light and the inner light are very, very much part of our tradition, and that's why I don't think people have really understood them properly. The moon, Qamar, I call it Qamar, and again, the divine name associated with this is Al-Mubin. So bringing clarity to that which was dark. And this one is probably the one I've spent the most time on because this is the article that my murshid sent me when I asked him if it was appropriate for me to do tarot. That says, it's an academic article which says that all these hundreds of years of scholarship have never been able to explain the sun card, except if you look at it in the light of this lesser-known writing of Ibn Arabi called Anka Maghrib. And he writes about the Quranic story of Prophet Khizr and Prophet Moses when they were walking. Some of you may know that there's a boat, and there's a boy, and there's a town, and there's a wall, and the wall is broken. And the people have been horrible, but he goes and he builds it because there's a treasure under it.
Right.
So these 2 boys had a very righteous father who passed away. He left a treasure for them under the wall, but it will only be revealed when they are grown up and the time is right. So the oldest deck, which came about at the time of the Visconti Sforzo deck, was the UR deck. They had 2 boys against a wall. Then even the Marseille deck, the French still kept it. The British and the Rider-Waite-Smith threw out 1 boy, brought in a horse, brought in a red flag of fabric, and just totally changed it. So I wanted to go back to this story because Ibn Arabi explains the symbolism about what they represent. So the young owners of the incomplete wall embody the notion of becoming because they're going to grow and become who they're meant to be. The sun represents the spirit of holiness around them that is nurturing them and actually taking care of them until they come of age. The wall represents the soul, and the treasure buried underneath the wall represents the divine truth, which is growing.
Wonderful.
And which will be revealed when the time is right. This is pure Ibn Arabi. And there's no other way to explain it. Western academics have tried for hundreds of years, but there were always elements which did not make sense. This is the only way to wrap it up together and explain it, and in a very, very nurturing way, I believe. And there's somebody in here who I met outside who said, please speak about butterflies. So this is another very dark card, Judgment. You have the angel of death playing the trumpet and all these naked bodies flying out of their graves. Again, it's kind of dark and disturbing. So death and resurrection in Sufism, we believe, is something that happens with every breath. Every time you breathe, you are coming back to life again. Every time you are inspired by nature or by poetry or by the sound of a flute, somebody who's playing downstairs, something new in your being is resurrected. So if you were the cocoon, and there are two ways of existing, we believe. One is the state of qabz, al-qabid. You live in the state of constriction. You have the cocoons, or you have the bast, al-basit, the expansion that you see in the butterflies. So it's about the divine feminine playing the ney, the Turkish flute. You can see the waves, the vibrations of music around her, inspiring the cocoons to transform into butterflies. And when you get this card, it really means that you have the option. Do you want to live in that state of constriction, or are you ready for your being to transform into a butterfly? You have the option. So butterflies are special because of that. And the last one. We have, okay.
22.
Okay. 20, well, the first one is 0.
Right.
So that's why there are 22 in all. It's called the world, and I call it the dunya. And her journey through the major arcana is over, but now a new journey will begin through the elements of earth, water, fire, air. There's always a wreath around her, oval shape, and that represents the Ouroboros. If anyone is familiar, it's a serpent that eats its own tail, which represents infinity, the never-ending circle of life. So this shows that her one journey is over, and now it's time for another journey to begin. My mother, his hair, she's from Srinagar, and she's wearing a piran. So I made sure that she was wearing a Kashmiri outfit, and these are the mountains of Pahalgam. This is Pahalgam in Gulmarg that we
Absolutely.
and so this is the end of her journey, and then a new journey begins, which are 56 more cards, but we don't have time for that.
Right, but the decks are available, I think, in
Yes.
readings, very limited numbers. So if you want to transform your lives, do go ahead and get them. And I assure you that they will bring a lot of joy to your lives. And you will actually look forward. And the explanations are so transcendent in a way. But congratulations, Ayeda.
Thank you so
for,
much.
Transforming these rather frightening cards into such wonderful things. But I just want to, I don't know how much time we have. 10 minutes. Just before I open up to questions, I just want to, at one stage you've spoken to me about how unwell you were while you were doing this in Toronto. And so just talk a little bit about your experience when you were designing these cards, and about really the extraordinary experience of thinking about these images.
Yes, so this was during COVID. I'd had an accident and my entire right arm was shattered. Multiple surgeries, they said you may not get use of it back. I used to sit on Zoom. My children called me Stephen Hawking because I would sit like this. I really wasn't able to move much. And all I was able to do was pray and meditate. And all of these images came to me in that state of meditation. So I'm not saying that something horrible has to happen for something good to come, but often your body tells you when it's time to slow down, because when you slow down, that's when all of this creativity comes through. And we talk about, alchemizing pain, transforming suffering into joy. This was a way of me transforming my physical pain into something which turned out really quite. It was #1 for a whole year on Amazon, and it seems to have touched everyone, because I think when something comes from the heart, then it's a universal connection people feel.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
and Ayeda is also on Instagram.
Yes,
So I think you can trace her there.
but
And she
not
does
under
it
my name, under the Sufi Tarot,
under
please.
the Sufi Tarot.
The Sufi Tarot.
Right. So, yes, George.
Oops.
Okay, talk a little. No, there's another
There
one.
we are.
Giving us a different dimension of tarot. This is art.
Absolutely.
And also, I just want to make one comment. In 346 before Christ, in ancient Greece, and Greece where I come from, Alexander the Great visited the oracle, and the oracle said to him, "Go and conquer the world." And actually, you know, that we do today to us. You're giving us a very positive energy.
Absolutely.
The negative cards you transform into positive cards.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is the greatest.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
A question over here.
Well, speak now because
can
she's
hear
taking.
So I just wanted to find out if we get a pack of cards, can we read it ourselves?
Of course. There is, my editor said that this is the most heavy duty nerdy book in the history of tarot. I give you bibliography, I give you endnotes, I give you everything you need to know. Readings, hall number 1 has a reading stand, otherwise Readings has it. And they actually have an online delivery as well. Yes, and we're very active on Instagram.
Raina has a question, but I think
Raina.
just one question from there.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Here, ma'am.
Yes.
In that circle, if you go back to that circle of being of Ibn Arabi,
Oops, no, sorry.
if it is easy.
Which circle are you talking
The
about?
circle
sorry.
in the first one or two slides that you had shown.
Charkhe Falak? That one?
Circle of Fana and Baka.
Yeah,
Is it
Charkhe
not
Falak.
working? Okay, this is jammed over here, sorry.
Okay, it's okay, it's
Oh,
okay.
here we go.
So,
Charkhe Falak?
Yeah, I think so. Fana is the Charkhe Falak. That.
This?
it was first slide. There were the whole circle in which there were Asmal Husmana were written.
yes. The Ibn Arabi's
It will be a circle
names.
of being.
Yes, the grand cosmic cycle.
Yes,
yeah.
that one.
Yes.
Oh,
This
Oh,
one.
This one.
Yes.
Actually, my question is, there are 22 names of God in this circle,
Mm-hmm.
and you have transformed into the cards, which represent a lot of things like names of planets, stars,
Exactly.
and some desires. But how do these names are related to those desires, things, especially when you talk about nerves and this devil? And there are names of God here.
Very good question, because the names are qualities.
Yes.
So when you talk about the devil, we talk. I think the slayer. And I believe that the word is Yamudil,
Al-Muzil.
the one who brings you down as well.
So
So
this is
it's a very humbling
so the
quality.
destroyer and the
The
know,
creator
God.
and the destroyer, we have both aspects. We have the shadow and the light. I don't want to go too much in the names right now, the Arabic names, but Al-Mudil is the one which is connected with death.
and it's not the devil.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the thing was
Yeah,
confusing
well, that
me.
is the
No,
best
no,
And
no, no.
another name is Ad-Dunya. And can you explain that name as well? How it is
Why
related
is
to
it
the name of
called-
God?
So that is the conclusion of everything. When your journey is over, that is what you come back to, dunya.
Okay, two questions.
There was one here.
Raina, Amber.
Actually, it's not a question. I've had a reading done by Ayeda. Actually, I don't have a question here, but I just want to share with this fabulous crowd here that I've had a reading on
Really?
these by Ayeda.
Okay.
And it was an absolutely most incredible experience that guided me, and such a state of affairs. The way she guided and read the cards, it's only a few months ago, and wow, it is such a sense of just knowing where you stand and how you can make things better.
There you go.
Thank you. One over here, please, Raina. Okay. Yeah, just say it.
Thank you for a lovely presentation. And Ayeda gifted me a pack 2 years ago, I think, 2 years now, and I've been using it. So the answer to your question, yes, it's easy to use once you get the hang of it. And it's gotten to a point where whenever I'm stuck in life, I just read my cards and I get a subliminal message which direction I need to go, or an answer that I probably knew myself. So, you know, our answers are all within us. We don't have to look outside, or we don't have to go to, like, you know, gurus or whatever. And
Quite right.
yes, the answers are within, but sometimes you just need a nudge and you just need to be reminded. So thank you so much, Ayeda. It's really helped me in life and really answered a lot of my questions.
Thank you.
And my little question for you is just, what next after this fabulous, these fabulous tarot cards? What's next on your agenda? What are you going to do next?
You know, when I was doing this project, I had a 250-page book which I was writing, and my publishers, when they gave me this contract, I mean, I could not have dreamed that they would say yes to me, but they said, we have two conditions. Change the name. I wanted to call it the Sufi Arcana. They said, change it to Sufi Tarot, because if it gets translated, then it won't change. And please don't do a big nerdy book. Do a small guidebook that can fit in here. And if it does well, then you can do the big nerdy book afterwards.
You're doing the
so
big
I want
nerdy
to
book.
do the big nerdy book now.
Good.
There's so much history there.
Absolutely. If there are no other questions, I think we're out of time. Thank you very much for your
Thank you,
presence here.
everyone, for
And
being
thank
here.
you to Ayeda.
Thank you, Shahnaz Aijazuddin.